When we talk about our religion, and when we talk about what we should do and how we should be, we look often at the character of the Prophet ﷺ for example, for guidance, and for inspiration. And when we look at our beloved Prophet and what all he went through in his life, and how he handled the situations in front of him, sometimes we look at all those incidents and we reduce them down to the Prophet just being really nice. He was a really nice guy. He was really nice to the people around him. He was really friendly. And while that is unequivocally true, the Prophet's character and the depth of wisdom in his actions goes well beyond platitudes and generalizations. Well beyond just saying, oh, he was kind of above average and he was really nice with people and he wouldn't respond when somebody insulted them. No. He took actions and made decisions as inspired by Allah that are profound and that are indicative of how we should be living every moment of our lives. When we speak specifically on the topic of empathy and compassion, the Prophet is unmatched in his example of how he handled, dealt with, and navigated situations in his life with all different kinds of people. With people who were good to him, people who became good to him, people who had no control over him, young, old, those related to him, not related to him. He acted in a way that is beyond sometimes comprehension in how profoundly amazing it is. And I wanted to share a couple of examples before pulling a couple of lessons about how we can navigate the difficulties and challenges that we face in our lives, specifically as it relates to dealing with other people. Firstly, after the conquest of Mecca, when those people were becoming Muslim who had spent their entire life in the opposition of Islam, it is interesting to see how the Prophet navigated welcoming these people into the religion. Foremost of those were Ikrimah, the son of Abu Jahl. Ikrimah, the son of Abu Jahl, after the conquest of Mecca, came back into Mecca carefully and secretly to meet the Prophet. And the Prophet, when he found out that Ikrimah is in Mecca and he's coming to see me, he told his companions, those who are around him, those who suffered the oppression at the hands of Ikrimah's father, that when Ikrimah is here, do not refer to his father as Abu Jahl. Abu Jahl wasn't his name, but it's the only name we know him with. Abu Jahl was the name the Muslims gave him because of how he acted towards the Muslims. And it wasn't just a little bit of opposition. It wasn't just passive-aggressive remarks. It wasn't just making people's life difficult. Abu Jahl killed people because of their faith. Abu Jahl led assassination attempts against our Prophet. Abu Jahl went into war with the idea that he was going to finish the Prophet and finish the Muslims. This is Abu Jahl. When his son came and the Prophet said, I have a good feeling that he may accept Islam, so let's not talk about his father this way, he's taking a huge step. Not only a huge step of not exacting vengeance or not acting on what would be our normal feelings towards somebody in this lineage, because Abu Jahl's son Ikrimah also carried in his father's footsteps until that time, until that moment when he accepted Islam. But he told the companions, look, it's going to hurt his feelings. He's not going to like it. And if there's a chance that he's going to accept Islam, we're not going to refer to his father this way, especially in his presence. And you know, the only thing harder to deal with than an external opponent is an internal opponent. Somebody who causes fasad, somebody who ruins things from the inside out, who, as we say, tries to poison the well. And the Prophet had no shortage of those people to deal with, chief amongst who was the leader of the hypocrites, Abdullah ibn Ubay. Abdullah ibn Ubay, as the leader of the hypocrites, at every turn, at every opportunity, tried to sabotage the efforts of the Muslims from the inside as a quote-unquote Muslim. And we know the punishment for hypocrites. We know where they stand. But do we know how the Prophet dealt with them and their families? When Abdullah ibn Ubay passed away, his son came to the Prophet and said that I'm worried about my father. And I know how he treated you. And I know what he did to you. And I know what he was like, but I'm worried about him. The Prophet gave his son the shirt off his back and said, here, go and bury him in this. As an act of compassion towards his son. because he can see what a grieving son is going through. A son who's well aware of the situation, who's well aware of who his father was. But at the end of the day, it was still his father, right? It was still his dad that died. And he was still feeling it. And Allah revealed that even with the garments of the Prophet, it's not going to undo what he did. But the Prophet was displaying his compassion for the son who's going through a difficult time. Anytime a loved one passes away, whether you had a good relationship with them or a bad relationship with them, whether they were a good person or a bad person, you feel it. It's normal and natural. And the Prophet was empathizing with him on that level. There's another incident that's narrated. Imam Alusi in his tafsir, Ruh al-Ma'ani, he narrates an incident where the Prophet's grandsons were with him while he was talking with the companions. And as kids get older, one of their habits is to interject into the conversations of adults. Because they like to. Because they want to have something to say as well. Because they see themselves as equals, as able to add to a conversation, as able to bring benefit. So they would start talking. But in this specific narration, it is said that the Prophet's younger grandson, Hussein radiallahu anhu, had a stutter. Had an inability to speak clearly or properly because he would stutter. And to make the situation a little more challenging, his older brother Hassan was a very eloquent speaker. Spoke really well even as a child. Very good at explaining himself and talking to others and all of this. So the younger grandson Hussein radiallahu anhu gets up and he starts speaking, and he's stuttering and stammering, and he's unable to even complete a sentence. And he's trying and talking and trying. And it was the Prophet's habit that whether it was an old man or a young man, whether it was a child or somebody from faraway land, he would not only turn his face to the one who was speaking to him, he would turn his body and give them their full attention. And while his grandson was struggling to get out what he wanted to say, he just looked at him the whole time smiling. And this narration says that amongst the companions, it took a while for him to complete his thought. They started kind of giving each other awkward looks because the situation started to become a little awkward. When it takes someone long, but the Prophet didn't complete his sentences, didn't rush him along, didn't say, yes, thank you, I understand. He let him finish. And when he finished, the Prophet said that he has inherited from his grandfather Musa alayhi salam. He has inherited from Musa alayhi salam because we know Musa alayhi salam also had a speech impediment. He saw an opportunity to change the perspective on a challenging situation, so he did that. He acted as a coach in that moment to take something that we would feel bad about, awkward about, embarrassed about, as a victim because of, and turn it into something great. He connected it to a prophet. Right? That this is the inheritance of a prophet. That if Musa alayhi salam can be a prophet this way, then it doesn't matter if anybody has any kind of difficulty speaking. He took the opportunity to make that statement to assure the confidence of his grandson was not diminished. Because he had the courage to speak, so he should have the courage to do that again. And finally, in one of the most touching stories from the seerah, although there are many, the Muslims had gone out on an expedition where the Prophet was not with them. And so when they would go out and they would come back, the Prophet, with many others, would go outside of Medina to greet them as a welcome. The way we go to the airport and don't just wait for the person to come home? He would go out to meet them. And when he would go out and people would be coming in, the Prophet would go to the back of the group, go all the way through to the back, and then come back in with the last people who were returning. And so there was a young boy whose father had gone out. His father, Bashir radiallahu anhu, had gone out with this group. So this young boy is looking and turning and checking and not seeing. And as groups would pass by, he would ask, have you seen my father? Have you seen my father? One group after another, one question after another. It said he even got up on a rock to look further away to see maybe he's at the end. When he saw the Prophet, he realized that his father's not coming back. He went out, but he didn't come back. And when the Prophet saw him crying, as a child would cry, the moment getting the news that their father has passed away, the Prophet picked him up and hugged him and held on to him until he stopped crying and said to him, "Would you like for me to be your father? And would you like Aisha, the mother of the believers, to be your mother from this day forward?" He didn't just give him a pat on the back and said, "It's okay, this happens, it's fine." He got involved in that child's situation, not just with a hug, not just with some words of encouragement, but with a commitment and a pledge that whatever you lost today, I will replace it for you. Whatever hardship you're experiencing today is a hardship that I will go through your life with you. And this is one of the slogans by which the Prophet lived his life. That your problem is my problem. Your challenge is my challenge. And your pain is my pain. This was our Prophet. And this was his level of compassion and his empathy towards every station of every person he crossed in his life. And we could stop here and say that, wow, subhanAllah, he was such a compassionate person. He was so good at being empathetic, and he was able to put himself in the shoes of other people. But the Prophet's character went well beyond just putting himself in the shoes of other people. If we go back and look carefully at each one of these four, it's a small sample of so much the Prophet did in his life. But if we go back and look at these four incidents, in every single one of them, the Prophet did something with his empathy. This was active compassion. When Ikrimah is coming, he didn't just say, okay, I'll welcome him in and I'll talk to him. He did something. He said to his companions, don't talk like this. When Abdullah ibn Ubay's son came to him, he gave him something to help him through the situation. He did something. When his grandson had a challenge in speaking, he spoke up and gave him a new way to look at a challenge in his life. He did something. And when he met that young boy, the son of Bashir, he did something. He did something for him. And so on us, it's not enough to be empathetic, and it's not enough to be compassionate. The question is, will we be active in our compassion towards those who are around us? Will we be active in our efforts, not just with the people who are sitting beside us today, but the people in our wider community, the people in our ummah globally? Will we act towards their challenges? Will we first of all take off the glasses of judgment that we first approach people with and get down to the level and be vulnerable with them when they have a challenge? And then the $1 million question is, are we going to do something about it? When Salman al-Farsi radiallahu anhu came to the Prophet and said, I want to free myself, the Prophet gave some advice and said, then go and try to free yourself. And when he came back and he said, the price for freeing myself is so exorbitant that I can't do anything about it, the Prophet said, we will do something about it. And the Prophet got up in the masjid and made an announcement saying, we have to do something about it. And the Prophet himself didn't just delegate that task to others and say, go help him. The Prophet himself got on his hands and his knees and planted those trees so that Salman al-Farsi radiallahu anhu would be free. That is the example of the active compassion of our Prophet. That is the gold standard of who we need to be with each other. And that is something that will hopefully bring us closer and closer to Allah. Because at the end of the day, we don't do these things for the awards or the merits they will bring us. We don't do these things for how other people are going to look at us and feel about it. We are doing these things so that on the day when our deeds are weighed, there's actually something on the scales. Every moment that we pass through in our life is a test. You know, sometimes when we think of the word test and trials in our faith, we reduce it to like when something bad happens, a car accident, a hurt, a pain, an opportunity to be patient. Those are quote unquote tests. But every moment that passes, that we pass through, is a test. It's a test. Whether we observe it to be a test or not is up to us. Blessings that come our way, they are a test. Just ask Qarun. They're a test. Good things that come are a test. Bad things that come are a test. And you know what? Even those things we walk by and don't look at them, as anything of an issue, they also are tests. You know, if you've ever taken a standardized test, now the computerized versions of those tests, they have an interesting algorithm that starts giving you progressively harder questions. Right? On your SAT or GMAT or whatever the test is, they get progressively harder. If you make a mistake, the next question is easier. If you get it right, the next question is harder again. This progressive testing tries to ascertain what is your actual level. The same thing happens to us in our life. It's progressive testing. When you walked into the masjid and you tripped over somebody's shoes, that was a test. Are you going to curse that person under your breath? Who is this ignorant person that comes to the masjid that our ummah is never going to be saved? Say, poor guy was in a rush, let me just pick them up and put them on the shelf. Do not underestimate the power of a moment. Just ask the woman who got water for herself and then saw a thirsty, starving, stray dog. That was just a moment. And she said to herself, I should do something about this. She went back into the well, took off her shoe, brought some water up and gave it to a dog. Allah, out of His infinite mercy, decided that that moment, that was just a moment, was a moment of salvation for her. Every moment that crosses through your life, every hardship you witness, every opportunity you face, everything that happens to you, every interaction you have with somebody is a moment that's a test, where you have the opportunity to make a difference. Not just to somebody else, which inshallah will happen, to make a difference where it matters. To make a difference where it matters. On your scales, in your record of deeds, for your hereafter, in order for us all individually to become closer and closer to Allah. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. We have a month that's coming up that is the moment of moments. It is an opportunity to do so much goodness. But let me ask you to consider for a moment not to simply be a Ramadan hacker who looks to optimize their Ramadan for themselves and for the benefit only of their own worship. This is a month of giving charity and feeding people. If when you give charity, the money goes to someone else. When you feed people, the food goes into someone else's mouth. This is an opportunity to help your spouse have the best Ramadan ever. This is an opportunity to create teachable moments for your kids, even if that means your fast is going to be more difficult. Even if that means your salah might be compromised a little bit. This is an opportunity for us not only to look after ourselves, but to maximize the Ramadan of those people around us. Find the place to feed people. Find the opportunity to contribute to. And think about how much khair you can do by being actively compassionate in the month of Ramadan. We have a lot of opportunity. And don't ever turn down any moment. Because it could be that moment, that class you attended, that sadaqah you gave, that person you fed, that is the difference on the Day of Judgment. That literal difference. That one accepted deed that Allah was pleased with. Allah, out of His huge mercy, doesn't ask us for a lot and accepts so much. Let's just try to capitalize on all those moments so that we may be enjoying each other's company in the best way possible in the hereafter. Wa aqimus salam.